Alright, in this video we're going to talk about the dark side of the tarot and astrology industry and what these tools were originally meant to be used for and what the practice has sort of become. Now, I've been doing readings for a really long time, over 10 years or so, and as I have recently decided to come back to YouTube after being away from a really long time, I find that the way that I do these things has changed. And my readings don't always paint a flattering picture of the person getting the reading because that's not really what it's designed for. That's what it's become really as a result of the advent of capitalism. You know, the idea of a personal horoscope didn't even exist originally until people realized, hey, everybody likes to hear about themselves. Let's make money off of this. Originally, astrology was only really used for kings, and it was meant to, the idea was that the horoscope of the king was the horoscope of the kingdom. Like the king was the microcosm of the kingdom. And so you could, by doing the horoscope of the king, you could kind of predict and see where things were going with the kingdom itself. And it was really accurate, apparently, because a lot of astrologers have actually been killed throughout history for knowing too much about the king. Um, but wherever there is money to be made, industry soon follows. And what we have now is some of these kind of big money executive types who understand that if they throw X amount of money at Y problem, they can get Z amount of money back over time. And so you find that, oh, tarot and astrology, huh? People like this stuff. Well, we can make some money here. So somebody who has no interest in spirituality, astrology, divination, any of that stuff whatsoever, throws a bunch of money to like a project manager kind of person who then looks at uses all their data analytics and their cost risk analysis and all these different formulas for figuring out what's going to make them the most money. They find out, well, what makes the most money is flattering the ego, you know, making people feel special, making people feel validated and heard. And while these feelings can be nice, it kind of turns it into what I would call spiritual bubblegum. It tastes good, it's nice to chew on, but it ultimately doesn't actually give you any sort of sustenance. And I have worked as a reader in many different capacities, as a writer for many different websites, or as a even like a chat room psychic at one point, and I can promise you that this is exactly what is happening. These money people basically hire a bunch of freelancers. They find people to write the content or to do the readings, and then they say, you know, they look at their data and they tell the readers, focus on these things and tell them this way, and they kind of try to micromanage the way that you do things so that they can make the most amount of money. And in the process, you end up stripping away what makes these tools valuable in the first place. What they were originally meant for was, in certain words, the deepening of the vertical dimension of consciousness. You know, we have the horizontal dimension, that is the material surface level world, your job, the house that you own, your car, just all the things that kind of keep you engaged in the day-to-day life without ever allowing you the time to really dig deeper underneath the surface. And then you can use these tools to kind of help you pinpoint the underlying issues, the things that are getting in the way of your spiritual progress, the deepening of the so-called vertical dimension of consciousness, sort of the deepening of your experience of yourself. Ultimately, you could say these are tools that were meant to be used in the service of the pursuit of enlightenment, for lack of a better word. And when I click around on YouTube, I find this exact same thing is happening all over the place. People figure out that if you know, typically if you're a good-looking woman in most cases, and you have a nice-looking fancy background that makes it look like you're kind of wealthy, and you have nice fancy, just everything has to look really nice and perfect and clean, and then they tell you all these things about yourself, and it's really, a lot of it seems completely aimed towards placating the ego rather than sort of calling out the things that need to be brought to the surface and addressed and dissolved so that you can move forward and let go of unnecessary suffering. And so you click around on these videos and look at the titles and everything, and all of it, it's all a little too positive to be true. And whether or not the person getting the reading actually experiences the predictions that they're seeing coming true, whether or not that actually happens doesn't even matter, because you end up watching so many readings and you kind of forget all about what they say was supposed to happen after a little while, and all you remember is how that reader made you feel. If it made you feel good, then you're more likely to come back because it made you feel good. It's like a Pavlovian response. And so the most successful readers, you know, there's it sort of incentivizes lying, conning, scamming. That's why this this field is just absolutely rife with like manipulative narcissists, sociopaths, people who are expert manipulators. They spent their whole lives mastering the art of telling you what you want to hear so they can get their claws in you and get what they want from you. Now, of course, not all of the people doing this are like that, but this sort of the entire industry sort of incentivizes that sort of behavior. So you find that the really successful ones tend to mostly be the ones that tell people what they want to hear so that you come back. Then you click on one of my readings, and I'm sitting here talking about these deep repressed childhood survival complexes and emotional wounds that are coming up in this way, and this is how you deal with it. And it kind of puts a lot of responsibility squarely on the lap of the person to have to do some pretty intense inner work. And people kind of don't necessarily always like to have their ego mechanisms called out. So I'm finding people are clicking away from my videos very quickly, and it makes me wonder if this is the right medium for what it is I would like to try to do. And while some of my readings they may come across as unintentionally harsh sometimes because it doesn't always paint a flattering picture of the person getting the reading. This is not These are designed for people who want to do the deep dirty work, shadow work, the understanding who they really like, their subconscious programming, their conditioning, so to speak, and undo these sorts of things over time. And it's kind of a painful process when you have those sorts of things put in your face. It can sometimes trigger a reaction. The ego doesn't like to be called out. It kind of sees it as an existential threat. Um, and it also seems that my approach mixes kind of three different kind of categories that for some reason in the YouTube sort of world don't like to cross very often. There's the non-dualism side of things, which is kind of like, you know, people who are into that typically gravitate towards Eastern philosophy, Taoism, Buddhism, these sorts of things, and or channeling even. There's a lot of that in the channeling communities. And then there's astrology, which tends to be kind of what I was just describing. And then there's the magic side of things, the occultism, the ceremonial magic, rituals, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that community really doesn't like, I mean, magicians and occultists often use astrology, but in a very different way. But they're not usually the type who come and watch astrology and divination videos. But it almost seems like there's a different image associated with each of those. And people don't like the idea of attaching to like they need an image to attach to. The non-dualist people will often, you see them wearing a lot of beads and kind of Eastern symbols, and or the magicians that dress like witches or always wear suits all the time and talk about their occult libraries and how intellectually elite they are. But all these things fit together perfectly. They are really made for each other in a lot of ways. But for some reason, when you combine all of these things, it tends to make the majority of people pretty uncomfortable. And I'm just not sure how to target, or how to package what it is that I would like to do on YouTube in a way that targets the right people. I'm not sure that it's even possible. I think I may just have to cast a wide net and see one or two people from each video sticks and actually resonates and gets what I'm trying to say, or if maybe this is all kind of a waste of time and I'm trying to do something impossible, or trying to recreate something I had in the past with my old YouTube channel, even though I am now a different person. So I do things differently. Or maybe I should just make videos like this and just talk to the camera and see if anybody resonates with what I have to say. I don't know. All I do know is it's not even a matter of principle. I am literally incapable of changing the way that I do readings in order to be more palatable to a larger group of people. Every time I read the cards in a very specific way because that's how the cards speak to me. I read the charts in a specific way because that's how they speak to me. You can only do readings from your own perspective unless you're going to just look everything up in a book or on the internet, in which case you're just doing readings from someone else's perspective who may have written those things from their own perspective, or maybe they got information from other people, and it's just this endless, regurgitating of someone else's understanding way down the line. Who knows? And because I have now gone so far down the strange and unlikely road of ceremonial magic through the Golden Dawn system, it has transformed me, which is exactly what it's designed to do, to where I now take a very consciousness first approach to all these kinds of things. Meaning that, seeing things as from the perspective that says that consciousness is sort of the substrate of all existence. Everything that exists within consciousness. Within consciousness, and everything's made of consciousness. And the Golden Dawn, there's They say something to the effect of, "Thou art within all things, even as all things are within thee." Um, kind of this non-dual. The outside world is not external, really. The separation between the inner world and outer world is an illusion, maybe a necessary illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. And the circumstances you encounter are manifestations of the things that are going on within your subconscious. And there's usually a lot more happening underneath the surface than people are aware of or would like to admit. It goes real deep, and the work of transformation takes time because you're undoing possibly thousands of years worth of conditioning, generational wounds that have happened to somebody way, way long ago in the forgotten past that just got passed down from person to person to person to person until somebody finally decides to do the work of undoing that momentum, or cultural conditioning, or, I mean, there's just a lot. So I guess this channel is probably for people who are really interested in doing the deep and dirty, uncomfortable work of spiritual transformation, dissolving the old patterns, finding, the pursuit of enlightenment, I guess, is one way to put it. Although when you say that, people get turned off because this entire idea of enlightenment has been blown out of proportion into this mythical thing that only the people living in the Himalayan mountains and caves can possibly attain. Really, all enlightenment is, from my perspective at least, is the complete cessation of all unconscious trauma or negative automatic beliefs, the constant commentary and chatter in the mind that causes unnecessary suffering. It can be undone. It just takes time, and it's very difficult, and it's not a comfortable process. But anyways, I guess I'm kind of getting off topic here. I meant to talk all about the tarot and astrology industry, but I think we're gonna just leave it at that. So thank you for watching, and I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.